Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Concordia University's Space. Thank you for joining us for the next part of the Insight to and Sustainability Across Disciplines series. And that's a Faculty of Fine Arts and a Faculty of Arts and Science collaboration. And today, the event is Careers in Sustainability. But just to help situate you, we're streaming to YouTube, live from Space, and we are located here on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. And we're also running today's event as a live stream Zoom meeting. So those of you joining us coming back on Zoom, as always, we welcome your comments and questions via the chat. Those of you here in the space, sort of same thing. When we have some questions later on, raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone over to you. Okay, with that, it's now my pleasure. Pass the microphone over to Professor in Design and Computational Arts, but also Fellow with Loyola College for Diversity and Sustainability, PK Langshaw. PK, good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. So I am the director with the Sustainability Across Disciplines and Rebecca Titler. So we collaborated on this joint effort. I'm from FOFA, Faculty of Fine Arts. So I'm here to introduce the careers in sustainability. But first, I just want to highlight how students can get involved prepping for and getting experience for their careers while they are in school. So my example here is my research assistant and former student who's just graduated from the design major, Anna Noel, and I asked it, she was in charge of putting together the student exhibition with me, and also all these beautiful schedules, posters, booklets are all designed by Anna. So I'm just going to really thank Anna, and she is a kind of student who is so invested in preparing for her future. So Anna, can you just explain very quickly? Yeah.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So my name is Anna Noel. I'm a fifth-year design student currently, working with PK. And so I've found that with kind of getting into this future in sustainability and in design, something that's helped a lot has been looking to my professors and seeing the type of work that they've been doing. So I had Anne-Marie previously, I've had PK, and looking at these examples of how to regenerate materials and how to not only look at where our materials are that we use currently, but their entire lifespan, and looking at how we can expand the lives of our materials has been very influential to me. I've been very thankful to be able to work with PK this semester on this symposium and to find multiple different avenues to get involved with the school, because there is always something with sustainability. I appreciate that Concordia focuses on that a lot. And so looking forward to this panel as well. And thank you, PK, for everything.
Thank you, Anna. Meredith.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. We feel very lucky to be a part of the Insight and Sustainability Across Disciplines conference series. So thank you to Rebecca and PK, the Loyola College for Diversity and Sustainability, and the Faculty of Fine Arts for organizing this. So my name is Meredith. I'm the Sustainability Ambassadors Program Coordinator within Concordia's Office of Sustainability. And our office is committed to engaging students, staff, and faculty, as well as the surrounding community in achieving our sustainability commitments. So this includes some of our wonderful services like the Concordia University Center for Creative Reuse, or CECR, whose 8th birthday we just celebrated last week. They divert material from Concordia departments to make it available for free to the community at large. We do also have a volunteer program that coordinates sustainable campus volunteer opportunities in one virtual location so students can find what fits them best, explore new options, and get recognition on their co-curricular record. We do also have the Sustainability Ambassadors Program, which is an 8-month leadership program for students. And we are currently recruiting for the 2025-2026 academic year. we help students design and implement group projects of their choosing. We're grateful today that our event is gold certified sustainable. This comes out of our sustainable event certification, which asks events happening on campus to meet certain criteria to be as sustainable as possible. So if you do have your own event on campus, please get in touch with us. We'd be happy to help you also achieve certification. We're also grateful to receive support from Career Advising and Professional Success in organizing today's panel. CAPS provides Concordia students and recent alum with customized one-on-one career advice through appointments and drop-ins, regular career-related workshops, employer networking and recruitment events, and career fairs. In fact, they'll be offering another career panel and networking opportunity on Earth Day next month. So thank you so much, especially to Antonella and Marianne. We do have some food at the side, so please help yourselves. Plates and cutlery are compostable, so please make sure you put them in a compost bin at the end. Now, I'm very excited for the chance to talk to our three panelists today, but I'd like to begin by introducing them. Emmanuel Addoquaye is a Montreal-based environmental scientist. Currently, he's working on the remediation of a former uranium mine 145 kilometers northwest of Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories as a project manager and in-house radiation protection officer. The mine, which operated in the 1950s, was built upon the traditional lands of the Chicho First Nations. This project's objectives includes restoring the usability of the land and addressing the concerns of the Chicho about the impacts the site have on their community. He holds a bachelor's degree in environmental geography from Concordia, class of 2022, and is currently studying for a graduate diploma in environmental engineering at ETS. Thanks so much for joining us. Lydia Baida is a Montreal-based researcher and textile sustainability professional. She is the programs manager at the Campaign for Wool Canada, or the Canadian Wool Council, an international nonprofit dedicated to educating the public on the benefits of natural fiber. Lydia holds a bachelor's degree in human environment with a minor in sustainability studies from Concordia University, class of 2021, and a master's degree in geography from the University of Toronto. In addition, she's been an active volunteer with Fashion Revolution Canada, serving as policy lead. Anne-Marie Laflamme is a clothing designer based in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. She holds a bachelor's degree in fashion design from the Université du Québec à Montréal and a graduate certificate in digital technologies in artistic design practice from Concordia University. Since 2009, she has directed the clothing design studio Atelier Bay, where she explores sustainable practices, including textile circularity, eco-design, and natural dyeing. Alongside her research, Anne-Marie teaches in the Department of Design and Digital Arts at Concordia. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we'll take a minute just to hear from each of you. In plain words, what would you describe the key responsibilities you undertake in your current role?
Hello, everyone. Is this okay? So in my role, my job is basically to make stuff happen. And basically, the project that we're running involves a lot of different disciplines. It involves construction, it involves radiation, there are environmental concerns, biology. So there's a lot of people who fill different roles. And as a project manager, I provide both support and leadership. So if somebody needs something, they can come to me and I can make sure it gets done. And if in the same respect, I need help with something, then I can go and seek help from other people. So I'm kind of like the middleman, and if you ever have a position that you need filled and you don't know who to give the job to, well, I'm the guy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Meredith. I guess my role is not that different from Emmanuel, even though we're in completely different industries. My job is a kind of a very classic non-for-profit role under a coordination and management title. I do a lot of project management, stakeholder outreach. I also support fundraising and grant writing, and I also take care of all the communications side of my organization, so social media or moderating monthly speaker series. Yeah, and I also have one foot kind of still in academia. I'm working on a project with my graduate supervisor, and last spring I taught a course in an undergraduate program at what used to be Ryerson University in Toronto, now called Toronto Metropolitan. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
So I think we have similarities in our jobs. At Atelier Bay, of course, one of my main job is being part of the design decisions and everything related to design clothing, but also objects. I'm also in charge of communications. So I lead a small group of person helping us with that. I was doing it by myself before. Now I'm lucky enough to have some help. We are a very small team. We're only 7 people at the studio, and this includes managing the shop and the online shop. So a small team, we are each many departments each. So communication is one of them, and I'm also in charge of all of the research and development projects, so writing grants and making sure that those projects happen and they are successful. And I also teach part-time in the design department in the undergrad. Yeah, a lot of little things.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll ask our next question. I'm so curious. We have quite different industries, although similar responsibilities now as managers. But I'm curious, what have you learned about the industry you're working in that you wish you'd been informed about earlier in your career to better prepare for the challenge?
I think there was a lot of things I didn't know, which was normal. When we started Atelier Bay, we started working on the project in 2007, and we started selling our products in 2009, so that's a long time ago. So things like circularity was not a subject we were discussing or that we were aware of. So to me, even if we add sustainability at the core of the project, I kind of expected that we would find a solution and then we would keep it going, as this is not the reality at all. It's an ongoing process and a learning curve and a like improving process that is fun and exciting. So I think to me the exciting part that I didn't expect was that I would never stop learning and I would never stop improving. And this is what I like about teaching too, is that I kind of do the whole circle where we keep ourselves updated, we try things on the field with Atelier Bay and we bring it back to the students and the cycle starts over. So it's this beautiful process that is never boring and never the same. Yeah, that I enjoy and that I didn't expect. Yeah.
I guess on my side, there are 2 key skills I think that I got from my time at Concordia and then in my graduate program that I realized are really important in general to my career, but also the importance of articulating them, both on my resume, but in the workspace, in my workplace, kind of in a day-to-day. So from my time at Concordia, I think it really trained me as an interdisciplinary professional. I took so many different courses, and of course, I was always interested in fashion and textiles, but I took classes in like urban ecology and history and languages, and all that really kind of informed my current path. And it really made me fall in love with also the process of science, which is why I wanted to do a research degree after Concordia, because I really wanted to experience, collecting data on my own and analyzing and writing that up, and that process was really, really interesting to me. And I guess my thinking was that, well, if I have, that stamp on my CV, I have the degree and my research title, that people will kind of like understand right away what kind of skill set I have. But that's just not really true, because there are all sorts of people that you'll meet in your professional life that also have really different like education history. So it's really important to, if you also kind of identify as like an interdisciplinary person, you have a really wide array of interests, to identify, what actual skills you can offer, or or in other words, like which of those skills you want to use. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I agree with Anne-Marie, especially about the learning curve. I think when I started my job, I expected that within a couple months, I would be the best, right? I would be showing up to work and everybody would be like, ask me questions. I had all the answers, everything. And I think I realized very quickly that that wasn't the case. I'm in my third year now working, and I still don't think I'd be okay alone. And I think a lot of times you go into something and you expect, okay, like my boss wants me to be perfect. I have to be the best. I have to do everything right. But I think what I've learned is that it's okay to make mistakes. Like, I mean, mistakes that could, in my opinion, be catastrophic might not be so bad. There's always a way to fix a mistake, and being able to accept that you've made a mistake and work on it and say, okay, well, I tried this didn't work. Next year, I'll try something else, or next week, or whatever time scale you're working on. But I think that that's something that I was always really, really stressed about in school. And even after graduating, I was like, okay, well, like now I have to make decisions. I have to, I have to sign my name on things, and now I'm going to be responsible for this. But, the reason why they give you that responsibility is because other people might not have your skill set. And so understanding that, yes, other people are really, really good at what they do sometimes, and you might be dealing with people that like might seem miles ahead of you, but they're coming to you for a reason, and you have to just be able to accept that, okay, I'm an expert, right? After you've gotten your degree and you started working, like you are now the expert. People don't know who you are, they don't know how much experience you have, and they're just expecting you to be comfortable enough to make a decision. And sometimes you have to be willing to risk it, and sometimes it works out, other times it doesn't, but there's always tomorrow, and you can always improve on that.
Thank you so much. I think that really speaks to some of the, especially those of us who are early in our careers, much of that perfectionist pursuit of seeing finishing school and getting a career as an endpoint rather than a new journey and a new starting point, that like is opening up realizing how much we don't know, and how exciting that is to learn, is something that opens up for us when we let go of that like perfectionism and instead see our team that we're working with as a collaboration towards especially achieving sustainability, which is complex and difficult, and we're learning new things all the time about our own mistakes. So thank you so much. I think that leads really nicely. I'd really love to hear a little bit more about everyone's career journey. I know we touched on it a little bit, but I'd be really curious what volunteer opportunities, jobs, and involvement with sustainability has shaped your career path. Maybe a specific moment or opportunity that helped change your trajectory or give you the skills and confidence to go forward. Lydia, if you would like to start. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple of moments, when I was thinking about the question, I think there are two kind of things that I think people would appreciate hearing. First is kind of paying attention to things that could be, just little things that maybe not even related to your professional life that might kind of take you on a journey of itself. So while I was doing my master's degree, so I guess to give context, I did my master's degree in geography, which was also my department at Concordia when I was doing my bachelor's. And in my graduate project, I wanted to tie my interests in sustainability and textiles. And I found a lab at the University of Toronto that was working in the Peruvian Amazon. And so I kind of pitched a project to who ended up being my graduate professor, to work with an indigenous group who's really famous for their artisan crafts and natural dyes. So their craft is actually protected in Peru as like intangible cultural patrimony of how interesting and valuable it is and the connections to local biodiversity. And that was wonderful, and I got to travel. I spent the summer in Peru and collected my data and did interviews in Spanish, which is not even my fourth language. I don't know, it was great. But then, that ended, and I came back home, and I was, processing my data on my laptop, and that, got pretty dry pretty quickly, from being out and about in Peru every day to then having to sit in front of an Excel file all day long. And I picked up knitting just as a kind of a way to ground myself and do something with my hands when, I'm not in front of the computer. And that just opened up such a universe to me, also because I was already interested in fibers and crafts, and I was writing up about a craft as a way to look at sustainability and conservation. And that kind of led me to my current job, essentially, because as I was knitting, I was, as just a generally curious person about this industry, I was reading up about wool and what kind of fibers and fiber industries we have in Canada, and that's basically how I stumbled upon first my organization and then the job opening that ended up working out. And then just maybe to keep it brief, but the second point is also just kind of showing up to different events and networking. I know people say it all the time, but I think it really works and it's important. You just never know when you're going to meet somebody interesting and somebody who may kind of hold the key to your job, like to put it really pragmatically, or just someone who shares your passions and interests. And I had a wonderful example when something just worked out so quickly and magically that I just couldn't believe it. But my teaching job at Toronto Metropolitan, the fashion department, I got offered that job over a drink at a vernissage for a student, kind of end of the year project. I was there with my friend who was already teaching there, and she introduced me to a faculty member who was designing that course, kind of a sustainability lab for fashion design students. And I was telling her what I was doing, and she was like, "Would you be interested to be like co-teaching this course?" And I was taken aback because of it's just like that's what people tell you to do. That you need to network, and then it just kind of happened in front of me. So I would just really like to transmit that message now to someone else that you can do it, essentially.
Thank you.
To me, because I started my own business, I don't even call it a business, but my own project with my best friend, Catherine Métivier. Before and even while we started that project, we went to, collect many experiences in the industry. So it was a very diverse as type of experience. So when I was a student here at Concordia, I worked for different teachers, such as Pique Langsha and Joey Berzoska. At UQAM, I worked with Yingao. So they became kind of mentors to me, and I got I learned a lot from them. And also in the fashion industry, I got experiences in, small studios, bigger companies, like a diversity or variety of experience and models. And then it led me to know what I wanted as a project, and also what I didn't want, what I didn't want to reproduce in terms of sustainability, in terms of values. And those little experiences were really important to me. And it didn't stop when we started the project. We kept, adding more. And one thing is important to me is community. we are still part of many communities of practices in terms of either fashion or sustainability. We did also all kinds of parkour. I don't know, that's not the word in English, the parkour. Not climbing on furniture in the parks, but having like a program with other business people or like project managers where we would learn about different subjects, such as one was called développement durable, so sustainability. So all of those little group things that are very rich and that also keep me connected. I'm not like a 5 à 7 type of person anymore, but I'm into those community groups where you expand your network, you find people where you have connection with, like we do now. I'm happy that I'm meeting with you today. So getting out of your studio and staying in touch with people is also a way to learn and to improve and to get new opportunities. Yeah.
I think the thing that led me to the job that I'm in is the fact that I have a very hard time giving up, even when I'm way in over my head. The first time that happened, it was in high school. I joined onto what was called at the time the Projet Verdir, the Green Project. The goal was to remove what they called the îlot de chaleur, a heat island, and so the schoolyard was basically completely paved, and they wanted to rip up, if I remember correctly, it was like 60% of the pavement and replace it with plants and trees and bushes and so on and so forth. And this was the first time I'd ever planted anything. So I got into it, and at first, it's like, oh, we'll just go plant a couple trees. But then we had to source those trees. We had to find ways of moving all this material that we were getting. It was mostly donation-based because we did have, I think it was a couple $1,000s from the government, but the rest had to be obtained through donations. And a lot of times it was at the end of the season when we would get all the trees that were kind of like left behind that nobody really wanted. But it was also around that time where midterms and finals and all that craziness was happening. So I was stretched very thin. And it turned out that I kind of liked being in that super stressed, high-paced life, not being able to sleep and everything. And I just went on with it, and that led me to joining the Sustainability Ambassadors at a time where I had way too many classes, no time, a part-time job, but I loved it, and I loved the experience, and I think that being in that situation for, 8 months, right? It actually helped me to feel less stressed about taking on a job that maybe I didn't feel like I was qualified for, I guess. I would have maybe started a little lower. I would have tried to do something that maybe I didn't really want to do, but that would eventually lead me to what I wanted. But I think being able to say like, okay, I might not be able to do it, but I'm willing to try, you might surprise yourself. So I think that's a little anecdote.
Yes, it's interesting how much leaps of faith, I think, in ourselves end up being so valuable in terms of finding the positions that energize us or building the community and network that bring us new opportunities. Often, I think, many of us cringe at the idea of attending the 5 à 7 or the networking and talking to a whole bunch of new people that we don't know, but it can be really valuable. Or committing to 8 months with a bunch of strangers can end up being very valuable for us. I'm curious, we've sort of talked about some things that were more directly sustainability related, but I'd be interested to hear, is there an unexpected experience that prepared you for this point in your career that might be just coincidentally taking up knitting, or it might be something that you didn't initially see as being connected to your sustainability practice at all? Whoever would like to go first.
Small arms. I studied a little bit in science before going in design, and I thought it was a waste of time. And I studied in theater too before science, and I also thought it might, because you try to be productive when you're in 20s, and you think like, oh, I made wrong choice, and maybe I did like some detours that were not, essential. But later with time, I feel that all of those things connect, and they kind of circle back together, and they're very useful. I've been working with, for instance, when I was in university, a lot of like robotic clothing, and my few years in science were helpful. And now that I'm really interested in environment for the past 15 years, there's also like a language that is related to science that I feel that I have some basic to build on. And same thing with theater, the fact that I'm doing, I'm talking in front of a public now. So those things were like, it kind of connected. And when we have people applying for a job at our studio and they have this very unusual path, they are usually the most interesting people and the ones that we have more fun working with, because they're, we always have a set of task that people have to do absolutely to fulfill a role, but then there's a lot of like blank tasks that will be filled that is adapted to their own profile and their own unicity, and this is how they will develop in our project, because we're small as such a small structure that there's room for being very versatile and diversified and to play in different like realms that are not connected, like so I think that sometimes we feel as a student that we are taking the tour and it's useless, but it makes you very unique and it makes you understand many other jobs, and it might be easier for you to collaborate with other people in group projects because you have knowledge about different subjects, and it always becomes useful. So this is something that I always try to value with students, like don't feel that you lost your time. It made you a unique person, and it doesn't only apply to degrees or school. It also applies to personal experience. Sometimes they have a rich personal life or some challenges that they face, and it makes them a more interesting or more strong people after.
Thank you.
I'll actually like to build on that because for the longest time, I actually have started two bachelors. I started in biochem, and I did 2 years of that. I valued my sleep, so I had to switch. But the time I spent in chemistry actually surprisingly became useful a couple of years ago when, for this specific project, we don't really work with radiation much, but for this one, because it's a uranium mine, there's actually a big radiation aspect to it. And I mean, radiation is something that's a little bit abstract a lot of times because you're looking at two rocks, one of them is dangerous, one of them isn't, right? So sometimes it gets a little confusing, but in my role, I am a project manager, but for this specific project, I had to learn everything I could on radiation in a very, very short amount of time. And I think that having done 2 years of science, even though I didn't finish the program, even though I guess I used to kind of like push it back, like, oh yeah, those 2 years, it was crazy time. Don't really talk about it. But recently, I think that I started to see the value in it, and I started to understand that, okay, I can think like an environmental scientist, I could think like a chemist. So it gives you kind of like a more rounded profile for employers, or if you ever want to do a project and you need that extra thinking, or you said language, I like that word. So I think even if you don't necessarily finish something, even if you think, oh, well, I've been doing this for so many years and I want to switch into something else, I mean, you're not taking a step back, right? You're still moving forward, just in a different lane.
Yeah, I think for me, there's been kind of similar situations where something I've studied came in useful then later in my job. So in the wool industry, we really kind of sit on the intersection of agriculture and textiles and manufacturing and design. And there's increasingly a lot of parallel, and maybe Anne-Marie also kind of knows about this, but with food and fashion industries. Like there's the 100-mile diet, and now we talk a lot about like farm to closet movement, where people want to dress with clothing that's produced closer to where they live, and they want transparency and traceability and that kind of stuff. So while I was doing my bachelor's degree here at Concordia, I did an internship course over the summer during the pandemic, which was actually my plan B, because before the pandemic started, I had applied to do an internship in Mexico, and then I couldn't travel anymore. So I quickly tried to, find something, and Rebecca helped me out with that. And I ended up working on a community farm in Hudson, so not too far from Montreal, as a kind of a general community ag intern, planting tomatoes and that kind of stuff. But it's the most time I've spent outside that summer. It was really wonderful, and it gave me appreciation for agriculture, which then, a few years later, now came in useful to my work. Even though we didn't have animals, and it was different from like pastures and the kinds of environments where you raise sheep. But I think just to have had that physical experience of being on a farm and kind of walking in farmers' shoes and understanding how they have to kind of prioritize, yield versus, health and safety and sustainability objectives and that kind of stuff now comes in really useful. And there was another experience also with my sustainability minor here at Concordia that was super useful, actually, was a project I did also under Rebecca Titler's supervision. Very random, not related to what I do, but it was a policy analysis on the bans of leaf blowers in the greater Montreal area. And for that project, I had to read a lot of like municipal law. So, very technical text, right? To pinpoint whether the bans were coming from noise pollution perspective or air quality and that kind of stuff. And I leveraged that experience later when I was applying for the volunteer position with Fashion Revolution, because it's an organization that interested me because it's kind of one of the bigger kind of nonprofits in our field, and I wanted to have an experience of being in that environment. And I saw an opening for a volunteer policy lead, and I also took a leap of faith because I was like, well, lead, that sounds like they want someone with a lot of experience. But then I did this leaf blower thing, so maybe they'll buy it, and they did. So. And then, having that volunteer experience and looking at fashion policy now comes in useful in my work. For example, I was able to take on some more interesting kind of analytical tasks at my job. So collaborating with the International Wool Textile Organization, it's kind of like the UN of wool, and they look at different, like textile sustainability policy. So I'm able to kind of raise my hand for some research projects with them too. Yeah.
Thank you. I love the idea of wool as like the UN of wool is fantastic. But please, you hadn't had a chance to share your unexpected.
Didn't I start with mine?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold, which is why I'm masked and a little fuzzy around the edges. But thank you. Yes, I think it's interesting how much time gives us perspective maybe on what we see as our stumblings, starting in a program or an area of study that didn't work out for us, or we ended up switching out to, or something that we did to because we had a niche interest that we didn't think was related to our original work, ends up being the things that later on gives a wealth of knowledge to what we're working in is so interesting. My degree is in English and creative writing. I was asked a lot how I was going to have a job after that degree, but it was extremely valuable in terms of being able to talk to other people, in front of other people, and articulate, what matters so much to me when it comes to sustainability, that I may not have been able to achieve in another area. So thank you so much. We've talked a little bit about sort of our careers and journeys and how they've been not always a clean, clear path forward. But I'd be really interested in hearing more about a challenge that you faced within the career path and how you overcame it. Because sometimes those feel like the end of the world when it might just be a hurdle or an introduction to something new.
I think every Monday. I think the first time I encountered like a real challenge is a lot of times in school, everything is more of like a question, like, oh, what is this? Can you tell me about this? Or, you're expected to go and just demonstrate that you have knowledge on a subject. Whereas in my job, it's more, I need this by this day. And there might not be any indication on what or how to do it. So you just sit in front of your email for about 20 minutes, sweating. And then you have to figure out, okay, what do they want? And how can I actually present something that looks professional and that'll fill in that need, right? So I think the first time it's just the worst, but over time you start to figure out, okay, this is what they're asking and this is where I have to go get that knowledge in order to answer the question. It could be, oh, they just wanted an Excel with a couple of values, all the way to, no, you need to write a whole text that we're going to present to a potential client or a stakeholder, let's say. So I think that switch is very difficult at first, especially because there might not be a right or wrong answer. The person asking the question might not even know what the answer is, right? So I think it goes back to that just trusting in yourself and your experience and just propose something, because if it doesn't work, like, they'll tell you and you could always talk it out. But I think that's one of the bigger challenges in my field.
I think for me, one of the biggest challenges has been the imposter syndrome that manifested in several different ways. But in one of the ways has really been kind of pushing some things, kind of like kicking the can, instead of saying, I can do this now. So telling myself things like, oh, when I graduate from Concordia, then I'll be experienced enough to start this thing. Or, no, actually, I think now I need a master's degree. Or now I'm thinking, well, I need like a few years more of experience before, maybe I'll launch my own thing, whatever that may be, right? But I don't think it's been of, catastrophic dimensions for me. And, on the days when I'm kinder to myself, I actually, I try to, analyze, this quality that I have, and I tell myself that actually things tend to turn out fine, and there's no need to beat yourself up thinking that, oh, like, what if I, did more when I was, a few years younger, because it's like, at first you're telling yourself, I'm not experienced enough, so I'll wait to be more assertive when I have that experience. And then you get to that age or whatever marker of, okay, like, I'm in this place now. And you look back and you're thinking, oh, I could have actually done more. So I think if anyone feels like this is something they also struggle with, I would just also, say, be kinder to yourself and don't sweat it. And I think I'm happy that in general, in my professional circle and personal circle, I feel like people are just realizing that everyone's on a different timeline. We all have all sorts of challenges, personal, professional. I mean, we just came out of the pandemic and no one knows what's happening in the world now. So it's just like, we're fine, and, just do what brings you joy right now and what you feel like you have, grit and energy for, and and just go for it. Yeah, I'm sorry if that's a bit abstract, but.
Thank you for sharing. To me, I think we had two main challenges, Catherine and I. The first one since the beginning of Atelier Bay. I'm sure you can guess it's right, money, paying ourselves. Because, you know, sustainable projects are not always the most, yeah, we don't have big incomes, we don't have, you know, big sales necessarily. And when you do a lot of, when you don't compromise on sustainability, you limit sometimes. We needed to find creative ways to make sure that at some point we ate something else than peanut butter, and that we didn't have to live in our studio forever, because we wanted to have, you know, a family and, you know, have a better quality of life. So at first when we started, we were still students, and like it was kind of almost a lifestyle that we enjoyed, but becoming our life project. Atelier Bay had to sustain ourselves financially too, not only for our values. So this is something that we slowly worked on, and we had to be creative about it to find a model that would work without compromising our value. And I think we found a good balance now, and we're happy with what we built in the past 15 years. And, you know, when we started having employees 10 years ago, then you're also responsible for their own quality of life. So it's adding on the pressure. And then when you have kids, it's another layer of financial pressure. But yeah, I'm happy to say that it worked out, so it's possible. And the other challenge that we faced, I could go on for 4 days about the challenges, but mostly specifically related to sustainability, big research project or research and development project, was about the timeline of those projects and the rhythm of those projects, because we are used to have an idea at the studio, and within the next few days it's, you know, in the store and people can wear it, or so we are used to this very quick rhythm. Even if we do slow design, we can make things, you know. But those projects of research have a different pace. And in the last 5 years, we started on those bigger projects, and we had to adapt to this way of working. It was like a new job almost for us, with a different pace, different collaborators, different way of working, different ways of financing the projects. So this was, all new, and accepting the slowness of it was also a big challenge. Those projects, you know, go on many years, and they still build on previous iterations, so they might never end, and that's fine, because there's new things coming out of it every year. But to me, that I like to see results, it was a big challenge.
Yes, I can imagine that being tough. I also love a timeline, so can struggle when it gets delayed.
It started from 6 months and ended up 4 or 5 years, the timeline, so we were very optimistic at first.
Yes, I'm glad you found your pace. Great, thank you so much. I love to hear, especially in consideration to the industries that you are working in, how you see ways that students can make themselves more compelling candidates if they are passionate about working in sustainability generally, but I think also in the 3 very different fields that you're working in. Whoever would like to start.
We receive way more applications than we have job openings, which I think is a good sign. It means that our project attracts people, which is positive. But what I really enjoy when I receive applications is when the application is obviously personalized, and when people tell me what they like about their project, and it's usually things related with sustainability. So all of those experiences that we mentioned I think are very important to, go out of the lot, stand out. And it's also important to, well, for me, I will talk about, like we are in different types of industry, but when people come to our studio for an interview and they've never been to the place before, it's always a bit weird because, we are open to public, our doors are open. We've been there for 13 years at the same address. So to me, if you really want to work somewhere, but you never visited the place, it's always impersonal and very, so yeah, when we have people coming to our events and, presenting themselves, and then, having a human contact, I think is very important, and not just feeling that they thrown CVs to like the 100 fashion companies that they were listed somewhere. So I would say more personal, more human, and put the emphasis on the values of the project that you feel attracted to and what you,
Yeah, thank you. Back to the networking.
Yeah, one of the tips I think that has been useful to me, and I wonder if that's maybe something that Emmanuel had experienced, but when you finish your program at the university and you're applying for jobs and you're really interested in sustainability specifically, understanding that it's such a vast field, both across like the disciplines and the levels of responsibility and that sort of thing. But and going back to my previous point that you have to learn to articulate the skills that you've earned during your education, it's also useful to think whether you're coming into an organization or a company that's already, sustainability focused, and you're going to be working with other people who maybe study sustainability or have like sustainability in their job title maybe, and you're kind of joining that, that green team, for the lack of a better word, or if you're being hired for your sustainability skills in an organization that has like a larger mandate, like being a sustainability person at a like educational institution, or like maybe even a mining company or like a textile company is not sustainable like by default, but maybe they're seeking somebody who will be their sustainability advocate. And you have to tailor your language, because also, something I've started to realize during my, the years I've been in the industry is that people can have different values or different priorities also. One of them, of course, being money, right? You have to survive. It's nice to be sustainable, but we all study that sustainability has 3 pillars, and one of them is economic, right? Like you have to continue to exist, and you often will be hit against this reality. So that's like one of the really useful skills, right? To be like that sustainability advocate, but also with an ability to manage budgets, or with an ability to fundraise, or grant writing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's been my experience.
So I think, and just because maybe some people, it might not be super clear. I work in the environmental field, so specifically, but it is a construction and contracting company, right? So we do projects, and I think sustainability and finances can be seen as 2 separate things, but it could also be seen as the same thing, because when I propose a solution that uses stuff that is sourced from closer, it might end up costing a lot less for my client. And now it's no longer a sustainability issue. It's more, hey, listen, I am going to do it this way, and it's going to save you X amount of money. So and I think sometimes it's in selling sustainability that there's an issue. If you're somebody that values sustainability and like Lydia was saying, you want to work for a company that has budgets to manage, you could sell it as, hey, I know how to save so much on a balance sheet because I know how to be more sustainable. I know how to source my products locally. I know how to, it's, I think, because I did also have that issue at first, like, oh my God, sustainability, how am I going to sell that? I don't think it's something that you necessarily need to sell. I think that the sustainability sells itself, but it's in the way you present it. Like, you're not presenting it like, oh, hey, this is an extra step we'll have to take. You're saying, look, if we do this, this is what it's gonna bring. And I mean, all of you have diverse backgrounds, and you probably all have something that you can bring to a company, and it's just about locating what that is and just selling the heck out of it. Like, it may not seem like much to you, but I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm looking to hire some radiation technicians for the following year, and I was expecting to have maybe 3-4 CVs, and I ended up having, I think it was 30. And some of these CVs were, I mean, like, they should be hiring me, like we had people working out of the Ontario power generation field. Like these were people that had years and years and years working in nuclear facilities, which I didn't have. But when it came down to like actually looking at, okay, who are we going to hire? The number one question was, okay, who cares about the environment? Because we're an environmental field. We're not a construction company per se. We're an environmental company that works in construction. So understanding the difference and being able to say like, oh, hey, the guy that we ended up hiring, he just came and he said, look, listen, I want to be a trucker, but I have this background and I really, really care about the environment. And so if you guys want to hire me on, I'll work with you guys. If not, I'll get my class 1 and I'll do long haul trucking. And like we were 3 people and we just like looked at each other like, okay, yeah, it's him. So I think understanding that, you guys do have a lot of value, and being able to present that to a company and saying, hey, this is what I can bring and this is how it can be valuable for you. Because sometimes they just don't understand it. They're used to working in a certain way, and you coming with new knowledge and new technology can actually be super beneficial.
Thank you so much. That leaves me thinking so much about how do we harness the storytelling about our own sustainability journeys or our own knowledge, and how often that is really how we bring more sustainability into our workplace. How do we be effective, or how do we find the right people to work with? How are we sort of keying into telling that story about ourselves and not just the environment, because we are in that relationship together. We have only a few minutes left, so I want to ask one question kind of quickly. Because we have such like a plethora of industry today, I'd be really interested to hear what is a major issue you think your industry will need to address in the coming years? Because I think many of us are thinking about where we'll be working next and what we can sort of prepare for. So,
I think in one word, waste, because we generate a lot of waste just in our daily activities. I mean, we unfortunately, there's no electric excavator, so we burn fuel. There's also a lot of products don't exist in a format that can be either recycled or reused. So sometimes we are limited based off of the technology that does exist. So I think waste in construction is a big one. And having worked in construction, I do see how it is an issue. And so if anybody has a solution, there is millions and millions of dollars out there for you to go grab. So if anybody wants to think about that, that's a big problem.
I think in the fibers and textiles field, what really makes me excited is actually that I think in the interdisciplinarians will be well positioned for where the industry is going. There are several really, really big issues with kind of the fashion and textiles industry, waste being a huge one. And circularity and the circular economy, I think, has become a bit of like a buzzword, like sustainability, like no one knows what it means anymore. And circularity is very energy intensive, so we're realizing, you have to look at the emissions and circularity together, and then, your carbon emissions, like for example, for animal fibers, it's like your on-farm emissions. Well, you can't just look at carbon, you have to look at biodiversity too, because there's been some crazy examples where, like a native forest has been cut down, I think in New Zealand, where there's a lot of sheep farming, to replace it with like grassland or like invasive pine, because it was carbon efficient, but then obviously it was horrible for biodiversity. So it's nice to see that I think in the next few years that the industry is looking to kind of bridge all these big problems and try to solve them together. So I think having an ability to think across disciplines and have different skills and having people skills like stakeholder engagement is going to be really useful, because it's, you can learn a software or some, specific kind of hard skill, but to have an ability or even like, academic literacy to read different peer-reviewed studies, they might have jargon and, not be intimidated by that, but say, okay, I know how these things are structured, I can Google this term or that term that I don't know, but, I can actually get the gist of it and then synthesize it and communicate to my team. I think these skills are definitely will remain really useful.
Well, I think that in fashion and design, there will be a lot of opportunities in the future. There are still most of the local companies that don't have any sustainable plan or direction. And so most of them will have to include some sustainable projects or research. And I've seen, a lot of students challenging companies during interviews about that and like reversing the ball a little bit, saying like, oh, do you have any during an interview, asking the managers what is their view on sustainability. So that is really interesting as well. I don't say it's the best way to get the job, no, but it could, because if they have projects ongoing saying that at Concordia you got sustainability addressed in most of your class and that the angle was always at, with sustainability in mind, it can be an advantage. And yes, saying, that there's some money that you can go get with grants and financing because they implement sustainable projects could also be like a good way to sell yourself if you're aware of those programs, and if you're motivated to implement some things in the company, could be very positive. But yes, I think there will be more and more opportunities in the professional jobs in both fashion and design. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll wrap up. I wanted to thank all of you for joining us in person today as well as online. I hope we'll have a chance to see you at the rest of the conference. Otherwise, you can find us on social media or at concordia.ca/sustainability to learn about some of our upcoming Earth Day events and the Sustainability Ambassadors Program. The deadline to apply is March 30th. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, Lydia, Emmanuel, for joining us and answering our questions. We do have about half an hour, so I want to encourage, we'll stop recording as I finish up, but I wanted to encourage those of you here to have some snacks. And also, if you have lingering questions, instead of doing a Q&A, we would love to actually have a conversation directly with you. So please come and chat with us. You can also chat with our sustainability manager who is here, or the two folks, including Marianne, who is from from CAPS. But thank you so, so much. We'll see you at the next event.
Thank you, Meredith. That's all. You said everything. I don't have anything else to say. Yeah, questions in here? Have some snacks. People joining us on Zoom, we're not gonna close the Zoom. We'll keep that open. We're gonna close the YouTube live stream and we'll be back. Thank you.